is the Unlearning Podcast, a show where we will begin to disrupt, dissolve, deprogram, and dismantle what we think limits us in order to reinvent, rebirth, and revolutionize the world in our most authentic selves. My name is Christina, and I'm your host. So welcome to the Unlearning Podcast. Today, our topic is talking about it starts with love, self-love, and self-care. And joining us today is our special guest, Dr. Franita Ware. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. Dr. Franita Ware is an impactful and award-winning educator, researcher, and author on the topic of warm demander teachers and radical self-care. Her area of expertise is racial and educational equity, and she creates and facilitates workshops and extended training to engage participants in disrupting their own learned biases, to examine how to change the obstacles that perpetuate education oppression for Black, Indigenous, and people of color. Her unique contribution to the educational community is the workshop titled Radical Self-Care. This work has been developed from training with educators who give numerous examples of the positive impact of radical self-care on their social, emotional, physical, and brain health, which supports participants' ability to disrupt biases. In this work, she examines how to minimize the impact of American culture-supported stress through a focus on self-love and self-care practices that can begin to heal racialized trauma. Again, let's welcome Dr. Franita Ware to the show.
Thank you.
I'm so excited. It's going to be a great conversation.
Yes.
The reason I wanted you on here, so congratulations on your new consulting business, which we'll get to in a little bit. But I have, in my own healing journey, have been looking at how other people are healing, seeing what I can take away from that, right? Mm-hmm. And I just see a lot of, in social media, a lot of the things that we think are self-care. And I'm like, is that really self-care? It's a little bit deeper than that. And so I was like, that's not what Dr. Ware said. That's not what Dr. Ware taught us in our radical self-care and in the DPS leadership and management course. I'm like, that's not what that is. And so I really wanted us to unlearn as a collective, what is it all about? And who better to have than the guru who has done research in it? So, but before we do that, just want to give you this opportunity in your own words to tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Well, so I am the owner of F. Ware PhD Consulting, my baby, and I love my business. I love what I get to do, which you've already described, so I don't need to go into that, but work around the intersection of radical self-care, unpacking or disrupting biases, and leadership development. I don't believe they're separate. I believe they intersect and they all make each other better.
What do you think that you do? Because you've already shared a little bit about something listeners probably would know about you. Mm-hmm. In the work that you do, what do you think resonates with people?
I think what resonates with people is that I have, with intuitive and inspired knowledge, let me be very clear about that. Mm. I have created radical self-care that looks at it answers the question of how can I heal naturally?
Yeah.
How can I heal naturally? What are the things I can do with just me? And it touches people's hearts and their intuition about how to improve their lives.
Yeah.
And my lived experience with radical self-care, I talk about love and self-love and how we need to talk more about love. We need to be talking about love a whole lot more. We need to be putting that vibration out there. We need to improve our community, our pod, our people. And so that vibration doesn't stay with just me. It moves to those people. And then when they go places, they take it to their respective communities and people they work with. And so we've got this higher vibration, this grounded in love, and that's the healing. So I think that people, that resonates, even if I know when I'm teaching radical self-care, talking about it, people respond that they hear it and feel it it's a little bit more for them to connect it to their head and go like, really, these simple steps will change my life. Like, yeah, really, these simple. And so that's what people get lost. It's like, that sounds right. What you're saying sounds like the truth, but it's got to be more complicated than that. And that's I'm always like, how can I present this so people can actually turn that wheel and go, oh, really?
Yeah.
It's very simple to change my life.
And I'll say when you came to our team after I was in the management course and you talked about it, and KT was like, she's got to come. She's got to come talk to our team. And she advocated, she went around to every single person. Dr. Ware is coming to talk about radical self-care. And you're going to be there. Like, that's what I love about her. So she came. And when you came, I was at a point where just the shock of being in a different environment, that it was a huge culture shock when I moved to Denver from living in the South, living in two chocolate cities,
You
New
know,
Orleans,
Atlanta, so I know.
right, to then moving to Denver. It was a huge shock. So it was very timely when you talked about it.
Wow.
And I remember sitting there in the session like, what is she talking about? Like, it cannot be this easy. And at the end of that session, you said, just do one thing. Just commit to doing one thing. And I did that one thing. You said, just be consistent with it, but just do one thing. Don't try to do it all. And I said, okay. And I think I started with something simple, like, I'm just going to make sure I drink enough water. I'm just going to make sure I drink water and just start there. And I started to feel better, but just physically. But the big aha for me was that by taking the time to go and get this water and leaving my seat to go, leaving my cubicle to go do this, it's like I'm taking time for myself, when I had said, like, there was never time for me to take time for myself. And it was also where I didn't feel guilty about it, because I need water. I need to drink. Everybody needs to drink. So it wasn't this huge, taking an hour or whatever. It was just start small. And so that really blessed me in that session, to just try to keep going. So let's get into radical self-care. So what what is radical self-care? Like, what is it? What the heck? Because here's where and no shade to people who do it on social media. If I see another woman who got about 15 bottles or something, washing themselves, talking about this is self-care, I think I'm gonna lose it, because that's what I'm seeing that comes across my algorithm of the bath, or the spa, or and I'm like, but what else under that? So really, what is radical self-care?
Okay, I hope to be succinct, because I got lots of thoughts about this. If it makes you crazy, think about how it makes me feel.
Okay. Because I'm like, how many times can you bathe? What happened to just soap?
Let me tell you, I had a physical trainer, and I was telling him about my radical self-care training, and I was like, it's not the bubble bath. He's like, that's just hygiene. So bubble bath, we need to be clean, but that's all it is. And I did this presentation at DU one time. Well, no, I talked about it. And the person there I loved, she said, I was talking about radical self-care before there were internet memes on self-care. So I've been researching and reading about this since 2016. I did my first workshop for an after-school program in 2016, and I kind of thought it was a good idea, but it was when it landed so much with them, it's like, oh, wait a minute, I'm on to something here. And so, like I said, I've been doing the reading about since I have a doctorate. I know how to like review literature. So I've been reviewing literature. I continue to review literature. I continue to read. I'm reading a book right now on brain health. And I was underlining the other day, and I was like, you noticed stuff. Why are you underlining it? But it's like, it's always the confirmation of it. And in research, we call that triangulation of data. So I have consistent agreement between multiple sources, multiple writings, not just internet memes, about what I call radical self-care. And so I have found consistent agreements on the brain can heal and be transformed, a course absent from trauma that prevents the brain from functioning fully. And we can rewire our brains with consistent, remember the part about the consistent.
Yeah.
And one of the things that does that is a daily gratitude practice. Again, and you said it exactly. It's like, what's she talking about? This is way too simple.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's like people be like, yeah, I get it, I get it, I get it. That's all I got to do. Oh, she can't be right.
Yeah.
And so
This what came across my head. It was like, she's cool and all, but she want me to drink this Kool-Aid a little bit too much. I'm like,
I know. So, I had this one team that I worked with, and so I would always say, "This team said it," because when I said it, sounds cultish, but when other people say it, it's like, "Oh, really? How did this?" I'm always on my website, and I even have a quote from a person because that's the thing. That's my challenge. Anyway, the other thing I've learned is the parasympathetic nervous system can change our fight or flight response. That always like you know you're always like just think about the people you're always on edge
yeah.
and they're always like they're always ready for a fight. They're always in that space. And so the parasympathetic nervous system can just override that stuff and say, baby, we're all right. Come, I got you. And it's as simple as breathing, like controlling your breathing. And so this consistency of daily gratitude, breathing, meditation, before we even work on the big areas, and we might have 5 big areas like nutrition, sleep, nurturing relationships, movement. All of these words are purposeful and purposeful work. And so before we even get to the big areas of radical self-care, and when I first wrote it, I didn't know about neurogenesis, neuroplasticity. That's something I learned along the way. But these things I'm talking about with the parasympathetic nervous system, that's part of neurogenesis and neuroplasticity, and just how you can heal your brain. Like it's crazy to me how
Wow.
easy it is to heal naturally. Like
Wow.
it blows me away. And so, like I said, people hear and they're like, yeah. Drink water every day. Girl, it's got to be harder than that. Because the internet telling me I need all these shampoos and I need this kind of bathtub and I need to go to this spa and I need to spend this money and then maybe I'll be better. And I'm like, baby, you don't have to do any of that. And in fact, if you do all these things first, when you go to the spa, you're going to get a better experience because your body's going to be more balanced. So instead of that massage where they're trying to like get you up to balance, you're already going to be balanced and better. So the massage is going to be even more effective.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. It's this is my passion for this topic because
Yeah.
the more I read, the more it's like we are capable of healing ourselves. And in the process of healing ourselves, we unpack the internalized racism that has been given to us in this society. Like we can overcome that stuff by healing ourselves. And like I said, my challenge is getting people to really go like, okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna trust you. And I picked 21 days because that's an easy number. Like I'm gonna do this, and getting people to really see how they feel at the end. I've had enough people who've been like, oh my goodness, this changed my life. I remember the first time I did the training for this one team that I ended up doing a lot of work with them, and this one woman cried, and she was like, I can't do that. My children count on me. My friends depend on me. I have so much to do. There's not time
Yeah.
for me to do that. So I was like, so how are your kids? I'm thinking they're toddlers. She's like, they're high schoolers. I'm like, please. But she, in fact, she was one of my biggest proponents of telling people, like, no, for real. When I first heard this, I was like, I can't do this. I started doing this. And now I'm really proud to say that she is a public school teacher.
Wow.
She was in the process of getting her certification and degrees and everything, but she was able to finish the process. And one time we talked, and her daughter had been through some real trauma, not like, oh, my friends don't like me trauma, but like some very real trauma. And the way she was telling me about it was so calm. And so I listened to her and I was like, I just want to point out to you that that was real trauma.
Mm.
And the way you discussed it with me was in this space of calm. Like I can see how radical self-care has transformed you.
Yeah.
Because usually when people are recounting trauma, they're like their energy is heightened. They're in that fight or flight. And so it's like, and this happened. And she was like, and this happened. And then we had to do this. And then we had to do that. And I was like, whoa. So that was my best example of seeing how it transforms somebody. I do the work every day, so I can't always see me.
Yeah.
Um, I can tell you examples of a couple weeks ago, I had an experience that really disappointed me, like really just kind of like hurt my heart. And I was hurt, and I went into my cocoon. I Netflixed. I just like watched. I just binge watched television for a while, but I never got depressed.
Mm.
I got sad. My heart was hurt. And after a week of that kind of little soft heart, it was like, all right, that's enough. Let's
Mm.
let's come out of that. But in the past, something like that, not recent past, but years before I got into radical self-care, that would have hurt me. That little cloud would have hung over my head a whole lot longer than it
Yeah.
did this time. And it was even different where this time I ate comfort food. Let me be really clear.
Yeah.
I ate comfort food, but I didn't like overindulge in comfort food. I didn't drink any alcohol. And I was very intentional. I was like, we're not going to good wine our way through this. That's what I'm saying. That whole thing about, oh, self-care, glass of wine, bathtub. Like,
Yeah.
that's clean and that's alcohol. And nothing wrong with being clean and having a glass of good wine. I like good wine. I like good champagne. But I don't fool myself and think, oh, I'm stressed. This glass of champagne is going to fix it. The glass of champagne is just going to be a glass of champagne. And
Right.
hopefully with nice food.
Right. Right.
But it's not going to fix the stress I'm dealing with.
Mm. And I also hear you saying, or what resonated for me just now is like self-care also builds resiliency.
It does. And let me add to that. I'm
Yeah.
not to cut you off, but
No, go.
I used to, when I first wrote Radical Self-Care, I was like, oh, it builds resiliency. And so you can deal with stresses of work better. No. We're not doing self-care to have resiliency so we can take more stress. This is something I recently come to. We build resiliency for us. And
Yeah.
not so that other people can take advantage of our resiliency. Because I taught radical self-care, I was always in this space of, let me demonstrate how to be calm. Let me demonstrate how challenges can be dealt with effectively. But in time, I came to really understand, because people take advantage of resiliency, especially from Black women and BIPOC people in general.
Yeah.
This is not so people can continue to oppress us.
Mm.
So we can be well despite oppression. So we're not doing this to continue to take more. We're doing radical self-care to build our resiliency and our health because we deserve to be well.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Take a deep breath on that one.
Oh my gosh. What is the difference? You talked about 5. What are the 5 components again of radical self-care?
Okay. So I started looking at nutrition, sleep. I used to say exercise, but it's really movement. And I explain why it's movement. Nurturing relationships, so not just relationships, but nurturing relationships and purposeful work. So I started looking at that as the basis of it. But what emerged in the process of learning about radical self-care and continuing to research, you see, that was the whole point. I didn't just go, oh, I wrote a workshop. It's the same workshop. I'll just do it every time like wake up out of the bed, sleep and do it. But that's when I learned about neurogenesis and neuroplasticity and about healing your brain and about how that work helps minimize stress, which then turns into anxiety and depression, which so many people are dealing with because that's American culture. American culture is set up for us to stay stressed so that we can't think clearly about what we're experiencing. So we can't question what's going on.
Wow.
It's intended to keep us. Think about when you worked full time. Friday night, you were like, ooh, child, for my glass of wine. No, but maybe it was just me. Nobody talked to me. I'm tired. Like even my friends will be like, we're doing something on Friday, save some energy. Like seriously.
Wow.
Or especially if I was facilitating all week, they would be like, we're doing something on Friday, save some energy. And so, I'm exhausted. I get home from work, I'm in shock basically. And then I got 2 days to live my whole life.
Yeah.
My house clean, see my people, get my nurturing relationships in place, do something for me, do the bubble bath that's supposed to heal me. Like I got 2 days to fix my whole life from where I didn't have time all week long. And so when you're in that constant grind culture, you don't have time to question what's going on. You
Yeah.
don't have time to question, wait a minute, is this the best job for me? Is this the best place for me? Is this the best food for me to eat? Is this the best way to recover my energy from, like, is a glass of wine really doing what it needs to do for me? Would it
Right.
be better if I just went to the park and went for a walk, no matter how slow? So that's the movement part. So grind culture, the over abundance of stress in American culture, this accessibility by our phones 24 hours and the blue screen on our phones are intended to keep us so wound up with stress that we don't stop and go, wait. This is not what's best for me. So it was getting into that I learned all those additional things.
Mm.
And so I was able to go deeper in radical self-care. So again, I think I told you the story about how it started. I thought I had a stroke. I was so stressed out. I was
Wow.
so out of it. I thought I had a stroke. And I literally said, sitting on my sofa, in fact, I got rid of that sofa because I felt like I had so much old energy. I was like, I got to do something radical to get out of this. And I
Mm.
used to pride myself on like getting I used to pride myself on self-care because I got manicures and massages. And even when I was
Mm.
in college, I used to tell my students, okay, go do your self-care, make sure that, you take care of yourself. But it wasn't until I thought I had a stroke that I realized I had to do something a whole lot more serious and get a manicure on a regular basis.
Wow.
And that's when I started reading. And I did go to a doctor and she was like, you're stressed.
Hmm.
And so I started, like I said, I'm a nerd. And so I started researching it. And then I became a brain health nerd. Like I'm really into brain health now. Like,
Yeah.
don't get me started talking about the brain. And it's really because I've experienced that. I've
Yeah.
experienced depression. I've experienced anxiety. I remember like getting dressed to go to work and I would be like, okay, I gotta get there on time. I gotta make sure my laptop works. That was before I left the house. And that's called micro stressors.
Wow.
By Ragan Chatterjee's work. And you can be stressed out before you even walk out the door, and then you go somewhere and the leaf little thing happened and you snap. And it's because you've got all this unmanaged micro stress, just like microaggressions. You got all these, unmanaged stressors that last little thing is like, well, why is she so crazy right now? It's because of all the stressors you can have before you even leave home.
I heard once upon a time, some research had said like most heart attacks for people are on Mondays
Mm-hmm. Because
because they're
because
returning.
of the stress of going back to work. And again, like I said, you had 2 days to fix your life.
Wow.
So you wake up like, I didn't get that closet clean. I didn't get enough groceries for the week. Or the ultimate micro stressor for me, I was busy all week. I didn't have enough time, and I didn't buy coffee this morning. Here it is Monday morning, and I don't have my coffee.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's for real.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then what is the difference? Because from what I'm hearing you say and what I see, and really I'm not trying to throw shade on people. I'm just fascinated. Like, what if you don't have the funds to do the upkeep
All of that.
of what we think self-care is? That seemed to me like it would be more of a stressor.
It is a
So,
stressor because you've got Instagram telling you, well, when you buy this certain shampoo, you're gonna have perfect hair. When you get this bubble bath, you're gonna, feel better. You're gonna relax, and like the magic fairy dust is gonna work or something. I don't know.
yeah.
And so think about Black women in America. How frequently we don't have that kind of income because we're paid less than everybody else. So
Yeah.
we don't have that kind of disposable income. And look at how, and nothing against nice. I went and got my nails done yesterday. Okay. I like nice nails.
Right.
But we spend so much money on our nails thinking, oh, I'm caring for myself, because that's the message we've been given, when really we need that water, like you talked about.
Yeah.
We need to be hydrating our brain, because our brain is dealing with all this stress and it needs water and high quality oils to be balanced, to be well. Like
Yeah.
it needs the water to be in. And like if we're not drinking enough water, it's pulling from other parts of our body. So like we're depleting ourselves.
Mm.
So yeah, I mean that's for real. And that's what I love about this work. It's like you don't need all those expensive things.
Yeah.
You really don't. And like I said, if you're doing radical self-care, which is consistent, intentional, ongoing self-care, when you go get the manicure and they do the massage, it feels better because there's not as much tension in your hands. You're not holding as much stress. And so you're able like to really like go to a deeper level of relaxation.
Wow. So what's well, not the difference. Um, so if self-care are those practices that we use that maybe are external, what's the connection between the self-care and the self-love aspect? Because I think that's the piece we miss the boat on that one.
This is what I believe. Based on doing radical self-care, which we know is intentional, ongoing, that one thing, and that one thing very easily becomes two things. And so instead of having your internal brain saying, you know, like the example of I was so disappointed, you've got to have a bottle of wine, you've got to have a glass of wine. It's like, no, I don't.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily healthy for me, so I'm not going to do that. And I don't have to just go eat everything. I'm going to eat some things that do feel comforting, but I'm not going to go crazy about it. And so that's the difference. You go from the I got to have this to manage this to like you can have this, but you don't have to have that. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's this internal working with you instead of working against you. So you start to do that. The other thing is, I believe as we focus in on this work and we do the brain healing that is amazingly easy, then we move from, and I believe it's a continuum. So we move from neglect and we move into doing self care. Then that becomes radical self care, the consistent, intentional, ongoing. And then in that process, we heal our brain and we start to love ourselves more. Like
Mm.
self love comes out of that. And we know that quietly people deal with a lot of internalized oppression and racism. And so there's that little voice about, you're not worthy. You're not worth that. Well, of course that didn't work out. I mean, come on, it's you. Why would that work out for you? And I'm not saying things will like magically all work out. Like you still will have those
Right.
moments like that didn't work out, but you're not as like crushed by it. But I believe it's the natural evolution of radical self-care that you
Mm.
move into this self-love that is more natural, is easier. You don't have to like work at being in love with yourself. You just become more in love with yourself. And when you have those, I call them the toxic voices, or a friend of mine in Atlanta, what did she call it? The negative mind.
Yeah.
Like when that little voice of you can't shows up, you can like, yes, I can.
Yeah.
Go away. Um, because that voice is there and it's been embedded in us since we were kidnapped from Africa and brought here to be enslaved and taught that we are worthless and the only thing we're worth doing is labor.
Yeah.
And
I
so
had
so generational, like even in loving happy families, there was always that. And then when I go to work on Monday, or when I drive through the neighborhood, or when I have an encounter with the police, like all of that is still there.
wow.
But in doing this work, we start to heal that embedded stuff and we
Yeah.
love ourselves deeper and we're able to love other people better too.
Yeah. In my last season, I talked a lot with people just around just a lot of what's being perpetuated between the black man and the black woman in relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And this love and hip hop foolishness. Uh, and what I see in all of it is just like you said, it's a lack of self love and worthiness. And so we're doing these things externally, or pointing the finger at one another to say, because you aren't doing these things, that justifies this. What specifically, I'm all about black first. So what do we specifically need to tell our people,
Mm.
help them to understand, and whatever that little first 2-3 steps, like you could do this and that practice of self-love, what would that be?
The very first step, and when I squeeze out the essence of radicals of care, it really is about daily gratitude practice and rewiring your brain. And the
Mm.
gratitude practice helps to rewire your brain and silences that toxic voice that says you can't. And it reminds you, well, remember we did that water every day. So
Yeah.
since we did that water every day, we can certainly go for a 5-minute walk.
Yeah.
We can, and so that's like that shift in your brain instead of that you're not worthy voice. It's like, well, remember you did that? You can do this too. So oh, my dream would be to do a huge radical self-care workshop for just BIPOC people or just Black women or just Black. I've done a small one for like women of color, just to say we can unpack this stuff. We can change the stuff in our head by simply every day taking the time to identify what we're grateful for. Writing has a lot of good connections for it, but even if you put it on your phone, even if you just say it in the shower, every day reminding yourself of what you're grateful for. And some days it's big stuff. Some days it's like the sun is shining in Denver today. Yay.
Yeah.
And then to to start to change that voice in our heads
Mm-hmm.
so that we're not fighting that negative voice, but we've got this loving, encouraging voice.
Yeah.
We can in turn talk to other people that way because that's what we're hearing.
So that is beautiful and timely, because I've created the Mirror Challenge, which is a practice in self-love.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just going to invite people up until Valentine's Day, because that's another lie we got to get over. You know, we don't need to buy teddy bears and chocolates to show we love people one day out of the year. So let's turn that energy, rather than spend your money, like bring it inward. And so just having some affirmations that you could tell yourself, things that have helped me as I'm starting to heal, to, like you said, get rid of that negative mindset that tells you you're not worthy or you can't do this, or yeah. So then as we close out, what can we anticipate in your work, in the next evolution of Dr. Franita Ware? Like, what do you envision for yourself?
I envision doing a lot more radical self-care workshops. I love all the work that I do. I love leadership development. I love disrupting bias work. But I'm really going to continue to push to do radical self-care because people need it. And really they need the follow-up too. Where I've seen it most effective is on a team where whenever they had their team meetings, they talked about, what are you doing for your self-care now? What's your radical self-care practice and all that. And so you have to make it part of a culture. So that's what you're going to see. I'm also looking to do more publications around radical self-care and the intersection of the radical self-care, implicit bias, leadership development. And then always, I have this body of work that I want to continue to explore related to my own research on warm demander teachers. And so I've learned the difference in warm demander teachers in Atlanta and in Denver. And teachers in Denver reflect the national population of teachers. And so that's still a body of work that I have not gotten published yet. And so that's what you'll be hearing some more from me. The other thing is, underneath all that is I want people to understand how American culture expects us to be unquestioning laborers. And what I mean by that, they want our labor. They want us to do the work. They want us to come to work and do the work. But they don't want us to ask questions about systems and structure. Or why was that done? Or why am I experiencing that? We're supposed to, like, it's like the reenactment of enslavement. Just come work, but don't ask questions. And so radical self-care is antithesis of that. It really is about, like I said earlier, we're not building resiliency so we can take more oppression. We're building resiliency for us.
Yeah.
And I believe as more people heal, the natural healthy empathy will develop. And so it's another way of how do we disrupt these implicit biases that people are dealing with. In all my work, I believe people have to get well first. We got to get people well before we can even do some real bias work. Because if my brain is still triggering fear because a Black woman is talking to me about why are you doing that, then I'm never going to get to unpacking my biases about Black women. But if I'm in a healthy space, if I'm doing the radicals of care, then I can stop seeing Black women as threats. And I'm talking about Black women because I'm a Black woman.
Right.
We can stop seeing Black women as threats and see us for the wisdom we have. It's like people want the stereotype of the mammy-ish kind of thing. I don't even like using that phrase.
Yeah.
Like we can be comforting to people who are crying, but we can't say, no, this is not right. And so I believe if more people are doing that healing, we can get to the healing of biases.
That is, and you're going to have to come back because there's just so many topics we could talk to you
Please,
about.
there's so many notes I took from the questions that I haven't even talked about yet. So please.
No, I mean, I got all day pretty much, but I'm just saying, I'd love to have you come back because I am thinking about doing some themes around education.
Yes. Yes. Well, that's what my doctorate is in. And so that's what, it's interesting. And I used to do workshops and tell people, okay, this is not what my doctorate is in. This is what I learned because I thought I had a stroke.
And this is what you've been called to do. So let me just put that.
Okay, like let's own that. Let's honor that. Let's touch and agree on that. Like I have been called to do this. And like I said earlier, I was inspired to write this work, which means I can't say I'm the 100% author.
Yeah.
I was inspired to write Radical Self-Care. Let me just say those words.
But I'm also going to say this about what I have seen you do and have experienced for myself, because everybody's been called to do that one thing. Everybody's here to solve that problem of which they have been designed to solve.
Yeah.
Yours is to empower people, especially people in the Black community, to do it, but you do it with such an ease. After you get over the initial hump of what's she talking about, after you see it, because I remember also I called you during the time that I had called you during George Floyd and COVID was that experience that I had talked about once upon a time, and you listened. You let me get it all out, and then you said, here's what you're going to do every day. You're going to take 5 minutes, and you're going to go walk. Just take a walk. I don't care where you walk. Just take a walk. 5 minutes, set your timer. Set a timer to remind you to go take this walk. Leave everything. If you don't need to bring your phone, just take a walk. But you made it so simple to the point of a lot of things, while I may not have been as consistent as I wanted to be, I now see for my journey, it was the first step. By you always saying, just take this, just do this little step, this little thing. It didn't seem so overwhelming. And so while other people may have the inside scoop on self-care, you do it with an ease. And I think that's what also resonates with people, that I feel like it's easy for me to do, but I'm not alone. There's still a piece of you that you leave with people that makes me think, okay, Dr. Ware said I could do this. Okay, I'm gonna find it somewhere. So that's what has blessed me. And so my question, do you, I know you do teams and leadership and organizations, but do you also do individual support as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So again, this is my business. And I have a website, franitawarephd.com, where people can schedule a discovery session. I'm happy to, and like I said, I love this work. I'm happy to do it with groups, individuals, teams, and organizations. I believe it is the precursor to any other serious work that we do, because we have to be well first.
Yeah.
And everything in America makes it seems overwhelming to get well. You got to join the gym. You got to buy some clothes. You got to like find some time in your day to go to the gym. You got to pay for a trainer. You got like all these things you got to do. When all this research, I'm telling you, it blows me away. Everything I'm looking at talks about how simple it is.
Yeah.
And in doing that one small step, your brain starts to heal. And instead of that voice telling you can't do it, you got this voice saying, we can do that.
Yeah.
We can do that.
And like I like to say, especially with people in the BIPOC community or any marginalized group, sometimes those hits keep coming. They keep coming. It's like I equate it to being the cymbals on a drum, and you're just bang, 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 and they just keep coming. And so I have learned through the layoff was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it allowed me to have that time to really practice self-care and self-love together on my journey. And so like you said earlier, like you didn't, when I was working, I didn't have that time to sit and think about what fed my soul. And so you just feel like you're all over the place. And now I feel grounded, and it's actually helping me deal with some deep trauma.
Oh yeah.
that I have faced, and so the bounce back of those hits is a little bit quicker. It's not where I want it to
Yes.
be.
Yes. And over time, you will see even quicker bounce backs.
Yeah.
And please know, radical self-care was my way of dealing with some racialized trauma that I had experienced.
Mm.
And I literally thought I'd had a stroke.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sleeping well. I wasn't eating well. I was experiencing anxiety, brain fog, like just the whole list of things that I mentioned in the word. I had all of that happening.
Yeah.
And this was an inspired way of changing that pain into healing.
Mm. Yeah. We are our own healers.
Mm-hmm.
I like to say.
Mm-hmm. Like what can I do to heal myself naturally? I'm not saying don't go to the doctor. I'm not saying
Yeah.
don't rely upon that. I mean, I did go to a doctor like, did I have a stroke? Like, what's going on? And I went to another doctor like, okay, here's some other things we need to do. But there is so much that we can do to heal ourselves. And say, for example, if you're going to a therapist, all the things I teach in radical self-care support what therapists talk about you should be doing to heal what they're working on. So this supports, all these practices are based in health growth. And there is no doctor that will tell you, oh no, don't do that. No. Don't gratitude. Don't breathe deeply. Don't get some water. Like they'll be like, yeah, do that and come in here and let's do this other stuff too, so we can really move you further along.
Right. Wow. If there's one thing you want listeners, like just final thoughts, and I have a couple of signature questions, and then I'll probably lie like I always do because I'll have another question pop up. But if you, one thing you would want listeners to know, like final thoughts about self-love, self-care, whatever that word of wisdom is that's on your heart right now, like what would that be?
You deserve to be healed.
Mm.
Be healed.
Can you
And
say it again? Can you say it again?
you deserve to be healed. You're
Yes.
supposed to be healed. Whatever guiding source or energy you believe in wants you to be well for you first, and then so you can fulfill your purpose. And so all this other stuff is noise that's getting in the way for you achieving your greatest purpose on earth.
Wow.
You're supposed to be well. You can be well. It will take some time, but you can start with that one small step. It is possible.
Mm.
And it's yours. It's your birthright.
Mm.
You're
Yes.
supposed to have joy.
Yes.
You're supposed to do affirmations every morning that tell you you're beautiful and you're brilliant and you're successful and people want to hear what you have to like. You're supposed to have that energy. You're supposed to show up and be the light that encourages people to be a little bit better human beings. You're
Mm.
supposed to. That's
Wow.
who you are.
Wow.
All of us, not just some of us, all of us. That's who we are. And we got to get this noise out our head so we can be that person.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my gosh. I don't even want to ask you these questions because the rest of them. Oh, these last two.
Okay.
Okay. What can we do as a community to support you in your work?
Go to my website, franitawarephd.com. Schedule a discovery session. Let's figure out how I can support you, your organization. Do business with me. Book
Yeah.
my work. Like contact me. Let's do work together.
And we serious. You need to do business with Dr. Ware.
For real, we're serious.
Do it. Like,
Dr.
I'm
Ware.
like, okay. Like she's giving you the website. It will be in the description.
Yes.
Click the link.
Yes.
There you go. It's a
And I
free
would
call.
love to have on my website a link to this podcast too.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll have that for you, and you can do video and audio.
Yeah, that's fine.
Also, well, while we got a few minutes, where can folks, again, your information, like social media, email, all that stuff?
I am on Instagram. I'm careful with Instagram because everybody I follow talks about how they have these bogus sites. So I'm like, I'm not really pushing stuff on Instagram. I prefer you contact me directly. In fact, the way my website is set up, if you schedule a discovery session, I follow up with the email. So it's not like it's scheduled and I got to look on my schedule to see if somebody like I follow up with the email because I always want to have a personal touch in my work. I never want to get so big and busy that I can't reply and say, hey, yes, so looking forward to talking to you. Thank you for finding my website. Let's schedule a time. So Tuesday's not good after all. It needs to change to Tuesday at 2:30. Like, I want to always have that personal contact.
Yeah.
And I like doing those emails, and I do them first thing in the morning.
So that brings us to the end of this episode. Again, Dr. Ware, I want to thank you so much for educating us and giving us the breakdown on self-love and self-care. I hope that this resonates. It will resonate with people. My hope is that rather than buying chocolates and teddy bears and taking people to Red Lobster, you're actually
waiting in that line and realize
in that line on February 14th, that you keep your money and you practice some self-love. So again, all of the information for Dr. Ware, her website, how you can reach her will be in the description, as well as a link to the self-love mirror challenge that we're going to also implement. Can we tag you for that on?
Yes.
So that's just the only social media thing. We're just going to tag you so that if you would like to respond in word or video, you could also put your little quick something out there.
Okay.
To promote on your channel.
I would love that.
Yeah. Thank you all again. And until next time, God bless. This has been the Unlearning Podcast. I hope you enjoyed this little introduction to the show, and I look forward to unlearning with you together in future episodes. If you enjoy the show, which I know you will, please like, share, and subscribe. You can also send me a written or video comment on any of your favorite podcasting apps. This podcast will be available on all podcast platforms. To stay connected, follow me on Christina Jones, the Unlearning Podcast on Facebook, and Unlearn This 2022 on Instagram. Again, thank you for listening, and until next time, what is it that you need to unlearn in your life today to live a better, brighter tomorrow?